Hello, everybody. My name is Lee Schwartz, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar titled Software Matters. Make 2021 the year you streamline your accounting software. So before we get started, I just want to take a quick sec and say just a few words about SVA. For those of you not familiar with us, we were founded 47 years ago, which means we are just about halfway to our goal of being a 100-year firm. Our vision is to remain independent. So while a lot of other firms look to consolidate or merge with larger firms, our goal is to continue working with the same clients that we have since 1974. And that's closely held businesses and nonprofits. So with that in mind, we've really strived to provide more information and assistance over the last 10 months than anyone else. We've conducted 35 webinars and have had almost 5,000 attendees. When the first PPP loan program was launched, we provided guidance not just to our clients, but to anyone with questions, because the stronger your organizations are, the stronger SVA is. And we've got more events coming up that I'll tell you about at the end. We are going to leave a few minutes at the end for Q&A. If you have a question, open up the chat box in Zoom and submit it there. If you're a client and you have a question coming out of this and it doesn't get answered, please reach out to your SVA contact or to either of our speakers. If you're not a client and have questions, please reach out to me and I will get you connected to a subject matter expert at SVA who can get those questions answered. Over the last 10 months, we have found that there are just a ton of businesses that aren't getting the advice or the assistance that they really need from their CPAs or their advisors. And so we're happy to step in and help answer questions. So please share the recording of this or any other information or contact details with others. Now, let me introduce our speakers. If you've attended any of our PPP webinars or our event a couple of weeks ago that talked about accounting, you're already familiar with Nancy, but for you first timers, Nancy Melberg is a principal with SVA and leads our Management Advisory Services group, which helps clients improve processes and increase profitability. Aaron Breber is a senior manager and CPA that works with business owners and their management teams to help them develop performance metrics, dashboard reporting, and to help them better understand their financial reporting overall. So I will be back at the end for some Q&A, but Nancy, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thanks, Lee, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So Aaron and I are going to spend the next 25 minutes or so kind of going over some of the things that you need to think about when you're thinking about switching softwares. We see a lot of people this time of year as a new year begins, start to think about how can I streamline things in my business? What kind of changes can I make? What kind of automation can I do? So we want to touch base with people because this is a process and we want to make sure that people are considering all the options that they have available when they're making this decision. It is a big decision, it takes time, but I think it's a very important decision for business owners and they need to think about things that they need to be aware of. So we're just going to start to go through those and we're going to talk about how important it is that you can get this information in real time so you can help make better business decisions. So I think one of the first things that you need to think about is you really need to think about the flexibility when you're evaluating accounting software. So not only thinking about your current needs, but it's really important to think about the future needs of the organization. Most people tend to think about what their pain is at this very point in time, and that's great for the immediate need. But this can be an investment of both time and money. So you really want to think about where do you want to be in the future. I always ask a lot of my clients to create a wish list to prioritize some of those importances. And I think it's also important for people to understand that there is not one software that can accomplish everything on someone's wish list. And so I think it's our job to point out which items on that list are possibly items that an accounting software can't do. We work with a lot of different softwares. We've helped a lot of clients throughout this process. The other thing that I want to touch base on is that we are going to be focusing on an accounting software within this presentation called Intact. So we work with Intact. Aaron and I are both certified Intact consultants and implementers. And Intact is an ERP system, so it's going to offer a lot of these things that we're talking about. So you're going to see some screenshots as we go through this. And I just want to make people aware that these are Intact screenshots that we're showing you, because this just happens to be the system that can accomplish a lot of what we're talking about here. So as you're starting to prioritize that wish list, I think you need to document each time you're preparing a report or doing something outside of your system. I see a lot of clients that come to us for accounting advice, and as we're looking through their documentation, they provide us a whole bunch of Excel worksheets. And Excel is a great program, and we use a lot of it here, not gonna lie. However, you want to automate as much as you can, because when you're entering things in Excel, there's always that component of human error that can occur because you're re-entering information. So if you can get a system to do that for you, it's just going to make things a lot easier, and it's going to save time. So time is efficiency, and that's also money. So you want to try to figure out what you can do within the system. So one of the other things that's important to evaluate is whether you want a cloud-based system or a desktop system. There's a lot of craze right now in cloud accounting. A lot of software systems are going to cloud-based. There are some that are still desktop. There are also systems that are desktop systems that can be hosted by an ASP. That's important to understand the difference, because that means that someone offsite is just hosting that desktop version for you. So it's almost like there's a server out there in someone else's location that's storing the data. So you really want to understand if it's a true cloud-based system or if it's a desktop system that's just being hosted remotely. The beauty of either system is that they give you the ability to transact from any computer. A true cloud-based system will allow you to transact only having an internet browser, because really all you're doing is you're accessing the internet. One of these other systems, you still probably need the program on your computer because you're just accessing the data through your computer. So you want to determine if it's a true cloud-based system. That will give you the ability to see all your data in real time. So the minute something is posted, it's updated. There's no backing up, restoring of files. If you happen to be on vacation and you want to see what kind of cash came in, you could see that immediately in real time by logging into the system. You also want to make sure that whatever system you choose, whether it's an ASP or a cloud-based system, has a good data recovery plan in place. Intact, I can say, because we're going to talk a little bit about Intact here, has a phenomenal disaster recovery plan, and they have servers that are probably within 100 miles of each other in the event that something happens. They're located in California. So the event the big earthquake happens, one of their locations is inside the fault line, one is outside. They test that once a year to see how long it takes them to get back up. And at this point, they're about 99.9% reliable. So it's also important that you check, if you're looking at a cloud-based system, what that reliability is. Any true cloud-based system is going to have this information readily available to you. If they don't, then I think that's a red flag. So the other thing you want to consider when you're looking at accounting software is you want to look at the security. So I see a lot of entry-level programs that say they offer security, but when we look a little bit deeper into the security, we only see that the security is available on a viewer and a user, maybe by module. Maybe you can give someone access to AP, but not AR, but you can't get granular with it. So when I say granular, I say, are there functions within each module that you want someone to do and you don't want someone to do? For example, do you want someone to be able to enter an accounts payable bill, but not modify or delete that bill? Or do you want someone to enter an accounts payable bill, but not have the access to pay that bill? So you need to look at how granular you get. And if you look at, I have a chart here that actually shows some of the information that you can look at. And here we're talking about accounts payable. So if you look at the first line vendors, we're saying that this individual has the access to look at a list of vendors. They can view a specific vendor, they can add a vendor, and they can edit a vendor. So if a vendor has a new address. However, they cannot delete a vendor, and they cannot look at the bank details associated with that vendor. This font is a little small, so I have to lean forward to read it. Same thing with adjustments. Here we're giving people access to look at a list, to view a specific adjustment, add one, edit one, and post it. They can also reverse one, but we don't want people to delete them. So I think this is really important when you look at how granular you can get with security. And this is something that is really important to know ahead of time. So you want to map out who your users are going to be to determine what to look at. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Erin, and Erin is going to talk about some reporting.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. So as Nancy has alluded to, when considering your accounting software, you need to start evaluating what are its reporting capabilities. I know everyone who's using accounting software is used to using general ledger accounts to record your transactions. But do you also have the ability to dissect your company into smaller segments, such as maybe by location if you have multiple locations, or by individual departments? Within Intact, as Nancy mentioned, we're focusing on today, the segments of your businesses are considered dimensions, and they allow you to have additional reporting capabilities besides only evaluating the company as a whole. Within Intact, you have up to 8 dimensions that you can use for transactional tracking and reporting usage later on. In other softwares such as QuickBooks, Classes is the dimension that they offer where you can track your transactions outside of just the revenue or expense accounts that you're recording your individual bills or invoices to. So it's useful to have these dimensions in order to be able to provide reporting on these specific areas of your business. So when you're, yep.
Erin, just to clarify, when we say 8 dimensions, it doesn't mean that you're only allowed 8 within each dimension. So if you had a location as a dimension, it doesn't mean you can only have 8 locations. You can have hundreds of locations, but the location is one dimension. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, that's a good point. And actually on the next couple of slides here, I'll show you some of those examples. So also within dimensional reporting, you want to know if you have the ability to create your own types of reports, whether that, let's say you have departments and you have finance, accounting, those are the same, IT, sales, marketing, administrative services. If you wanted to have someone who is in charge of 1 or 2 of those departments have one report, it's important to consider if your reporting system has the capabilities of being able to report on those items, or whether you can even review them individually or consolidate it as a whole. So the next slide that you'll see is just an example of a journal entry on how you would actually record this in your system within Intact. On the bottom of the slide, you can see where it says entries that you would have your general ledger account, but you also have these various dimensions of department, location, and class that would be a drop-down list of the ones that you have set up in the system that you could select for individual transactions. And it is line by line, so you could really get granular in your reporting to provide the capabilities that you need. So on this next, yep.
I just wanted to point out in here, this becomes important because then, Erin, we wouldn't have to have a separate GL account to record each individual location or department, where I think all of us have probably seen general ledger accounts or chart of accounts that are 10 pages long because they might go advertising being 6,000, then -10, which is a department, then -200, which is a location. So you're saying we don't need that in Intact's chart of accounts because we're utilizing them through this department and location. So it's really streamlining our chart of accounts. At the same time, it's giving us valuable information.
Yes, and it also saves time that you will not have to, every time you add, let's say, a new department or location or employee, if you track by employees, you do not have to spend the time adding a new account for each of those. You literally would just add one, either department, location, or class, and you're ready to go. So that would also save you time on the setting up end as an example. So moving on with dimensional reporting, you would want to also evaluate your accounting software's ability to give you financial reporting. For financial statements, how easily can you create a custom financial statement that will provide you with information in a format that's most important to you? I know in a lot of accounting softwares that we help with our clients on, we don't have the ability to customize the financial statements to report maybe even in an order that we would want to see the revenue or expenses show up in. So the nice thing about a program like Intact is it's very customizable, and you can create the financial statements to report in a way that is most meaningful to you, that both provides you with metrics and goals to help both incentivize and make your managers accountable for their divisions. So on this slide here as an example, just to show you how the dimensional reporting could be shown within Intact, this is an example of a profit and loss statement by department. And you can see, hopefully it's not too small for everyone, but you can see there is the revenue, costs of revenue, and operating expenses on the left-hand side. And each column then after that are the different dimensions that are set up in this company. So you can see and track by each department how everyone is performing, and then see how the company is performing also as a whole. And then on the next slide here, as just another example of dimensional reporting, is one that is by location. Now this one is just the operating expenses, but again, you could modify and create reports that show, location one's revenue, or if you just wanted to record on the gross profit for your company, you could create these reports and then provide them to that departmental manager, so that you can hold them more accountable to make sure that their company or their department is performing as you were expecting. So next with this, Nancy will go over just customization options that are available within softwares.
Thanks, Erin. So I have to say, this is probably the one feature in accounting software that I just get so excited about. Very passionate about customization. And so you want to make sure when you're picking an accounting software, or if you're even utilizing your existing software, what kind of options do you have for customization? Erin talked a lot about financial statements, but there's a lot of other places within accounting software that you can customize things. So in Intact, for example, we have the ability to create custom fields within any input screen. So we have an example on the screen here of sales or use tax. So how often does your accountant ask you when they're filing a sales tax return if you purchased anything that you didn't pay use tax on? And so as we started to migrate clients onto Intact, we thought what a great feature this would be, is to create a custom field for it. So all we have to do is go into Intact and run a report. So when someone is entering a bill, as you see on the screen, if they didn't pay sales tax on it, we have a question on there: is sales tax charged? You can actually force the user to answer yes or no, so people don't forget that. And then we can easily go in and run a report that says which bills came in that the answer was no, there was not sales tax charged on. And then we can go through it and determine if sales tax or if use tax needs to be added to the return. So this is just an example of one of the ways that you can customize. And again, anything that you can think of, you can add on here and you can track. Another one that we do that's actually, I use it because it's pretty easy to create, is the ship to state. So if I have clients that are shipping product and we're doing multi-state tax returns, I want to know where they ship the product to. I know I can still utilize the ship to address in a report, but then I'm dealing with entire addresses. I just want to know the state it was in. So I've oftentimes just created a custom field on a customer's invoice that says ship to state, and they have to put a state in, and then I can very easily run reports at the end of the year of sales by state. You can also customize forms, and so you want to look at what's important to you. If you have somebody entering information in a form and there's a lot of fields that they don't need and they're having to tab through, then it's probably not working for you. So you want to be able to think, is there a way that I can customize something that I don't need all these, or that maybe the terminology is different. Some people call their vendors suppliers and they get confused when you refer to them as a vendor. Other people call customers clients, we do. And so sometimes customers to me feels like they're just buying a widget, where a client is something that makes sense to us. So again, these are just things to consider because you want to pick a software that works for your company. And with that, I think Erin's going to talk a little bit about dashboards.
So dashboards are a very pretty picture of the company. So one thing to consider is, does the accounting software that you're using have the ability to provide you with a dashboard report? Or is this something that you have created outside of the system because your accounting software doesn't have this capability? This dashboard example that I have in front of you provides you with a nice visual to give you easy access to key business information, such as say your cash balance or your AR aging, because you wanted to know what what customers owe you money, or other key metrics that are important to you that you don't have to then run various reports in order to get you this information. So this example that's on the screen right now is just an example of a dashboard that's showing key metrics for customer tracking and subscriptions for a software company. And it's in an easy to read visual, because we know a lot of business owners are not numbers people like Nancy and myself who are accountants. They like visuals to provide them with how is their business tracking. And it gives you also the ability to add graphs on here. So it's not just financial reports that you could put on a dashboard, but you can also put pie charts and bar graphs like you can see here that'll help you see how your business is trending, or areas that need improvement. And also within Intact, the information that you have for dashboards pulls directly from your accounting system. So as your other users of the software are adding information, this dashboard that you have in front of you would actually automatically refresh every 6 seconds. Whereas maybe in other softwares, you might have to manually update that or put it in your outside, maybe Excel spreadsheet that we talked about earlier to provide you with the metrics and the documents that you were wanting to evaluate. So another thing that Intact does provide is the ability to have dashboards on either different business segments, such as maybe you want to have a dashboard that only focuses on revenue items, such as your customers and maybe your number of customers that you have on hand, or just set up in your system. Or another one is based on, do you want one by employee position or their role? Maybe you have a purchasing manager that has access to your accounting software that you want them to know, what are your inventory levels at? When do we need to repurchase items? Do they need to approve bills? These are the things that you can add to a dashboard, and you can modify them based on what in particular that you want to evaluate. So again, it's not just showing just the financial reports that you may be used to, but also, giving you easy to read visuals on how to track your data. So
Thanks, Erin.
unless Nancy has anything else to say, but next you can cover other special features that we have within Intact.
I will say really quickly that having dashboards has saved some internal accountants time because they don't have the owners calling them multiple times a day to say how much cash did we collect today, or what's our sales for the day. So it does save time. So just real quickly, I want to touch on an interesting feature that Intact has that I believe there are other softwares that have, which is statistical journal entries. So these are entries that you can make based on non-financial information, but link them to financial. So if you were interested in knowing what your net income was per FTE, you wanted that metric, there would be a way to just put in the number of FTEs that you have at any given month and then divide that by the net income within the software. So you can actually look at things like that. So that's just kind of an interesting feature that I wanted to point out. And then Erin, I think you have a couple other features that you want to talk about that people can utilize.
Yeah, there's other features within the system, especially within Intact, that can help automate your system. And some of those are reoccurring entries. So rather than every month having to remember to record, let's say, your rent expense, as an example, the system does have the ability where you could set it up once, set up on, you can see it kind of on this example that we have here. You say, when does it start? When does it end? And how often does it repeat? So again, it's just another way to kind of save you some time and automate your system in order to provide, some time saving on the other end. Another special feature then on our next slide here do you have the capability of importing or exporting data? One of the nice things about Intact is you have the ability to import CSV files into the system rather than having to manually type transactions one by one. Sometimes these things are referred to as flat files, but you do have the ability in a lot of the modules within the Intact software in order to import those, especially if it's coming from a different software that you're using outside of your accounting software. Also within Intact, it does give you the ability to send you the errors for when you're importing transactions. And I've spent a lot of time reading these error messages, but they do give the ability to then modify your files and fix them so that you have the ability to then fix this going forward. Another thing that can help save time is auto allocations. And with this capability is you could set up an allocation breakdown that lets you allocate revenue or expenses to specific accounts, or even your dimensions that go based off of specific percentages that you use each time you enter in a transaction. So maybe you have a bill that, let's say utilities, that gets broken down between multiple locations, rather than having to know, okay, 5% goes to Milwaukee, 10% goes to Brookfield, etc. You could set up an allocation so that all you do is enter in the bill, press the allocation, and it does it for you. So again, it's another way to just save you time and utilize a system so that you're not having to spend all that time and now you're gaining some efficiencies. Other areas within Intact are using other third-party applications. Some of those applications integrate automatically, whereas others, maybe you have to create an integration where you import in another CSV file. That might usually we see this with customers or clients that use a point of sale system, and we put their information into a CSV file, and then they can just import that into their accounting software. And then another option is the ability to use open database connectivity, or ODBC, where you can use another way if you're a programmer, which Nancy and I are not, but where you can use web services to integrate outside applications. So again, it has a lot of special features, ways to kind of automate your system and, just give you efficiencies so that you can, provide better data and don't have to spend all the time doing that data entry. So then Nancy will go over just if you have multiple entities, consolidating capabilities within Intact.
Yeah, so I just want to touch real briefly because we want to leave a minute here for questions, but I think it's really important to consider when you're looking at software, the capabilities of having multi-entities within one platform and then maybe consolidating. Although you may not think you need to consolidate your financials, oftentimes banks will ask for them consolidated if you have a loan and there are some loan requirements. And then you also want to look at, will the system make intercompany entries for you, due from the other entity if one entity pays a bill on behalf of the other entity. This is where things can get really, really confusing in accounting software. So you want to see if the system that you're looking at has the ability to do this. Intact does, and that's why we wanted to bring it up. So I think with that, we'll see if we have any questions here.
All right, Nancy and Aaron, thank you so much for all that. We did have a couple questions come in. I don't know that I'll ask if other people want to send in some questions. Let's give it a try. I'm not sure that we'll get to all, but one that came in was, how hard is it to upgrade from QuickBooks and how long does it take?
Yeah, so I generally don't recommend any type of automatic upgrade. You really want to lay out what you want your new system to look like, and you want to manually put that information. You will lose historical data, but it's very difficult taking a square peg and putting it in a round hole because QuickBooks has limitations to it. And with Intact, we don't really have limitations. So we can design it any way we want, but because we have 100 fields in one side and maybe we had 10 in the other, you're not going to get all the data over. So we generally put in beginning balances that can be put in at any point in time, and then we just move forward from there. So it's not difficult, you just lose your historical data.
Okay, and then I know a question we get often is, should you wait until year end to get started on a new system?
Erin, I'll let you take this one.
Typically, when we are helping clients convert from their systems, we usually want to pick a good point in time to break that off. Obviously, end of the year is the best time because you have a new fresh year to start your data. But honestly, it can really be, at the end of a quarter. Usually we want to spend time with the business owners to make sure they know what information we're going to put in and what we're going to bring over from the previous software. But again, you don't have to do it at the end of the year. Usually that's just the easiest because at least then you've got a good breaking point from your old software to your new software.
You don't want to do it in the middle of a month though.
No.
Never in the middle of a month.
And then we've had a couple of other very specific questions come in, but one that just came in as well is, do you have any recommendations on how to use an ERP to automate cash flow projections? This person says that's one of the biggest manual processes at this time.
So there is an actual cash flow statement in Intact. So assuming that information is being put in appropriately, it will do some of that reporting for you. Or again, in a lot of these ERP systems, you can write custom reports. So you can just write a report that pulls information out of the different modules to grab what you need. So yeah, you can certainly do some cash flow forecasts and models within the software.
Okay, and I know there were some other, again, very specific questions that came up. We can answer those offline. Knowing that we're already a couple minutes over here, let's start wrapping up. And I just want to let everybody know that we've got a lot of information available to you, including the recording of this webinar that'll be at svaaccountants.com/hub. So we've got a lot of information on the PPP, the most recent legislation and PPP loans, some PDFs, some past webinars that we've done. So please go there to take a look at the resources we have available. Over the next couple of weeks, we have some industry-specific roundtables. We are limiting attendance to those. You see on your screen now the industries that those will serve. Those are meant to be very interactive. So we're asking people who join to have their video on, to come prepared to share their experiences. Some of those are getting a little tight on attendance. So please sign up this week if you are interested. And I just want to remind you all that the SVA team is only a phone call or an email or a Zoom meeting away. So if you're a client, please reach out to your SVA contacts. If you have questions about this, feel free to reach out to Nancy or Erin. But if you're not currently a client, please reach out to me and I can get you the help or the connections that you need. Thank you again for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day and please be well. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.